What if I told you that the moment your grandmother reached for that brown bottle, she was already 10 steps ahead of the scientists who would spend the next 60 years trying to prove her wrong? Welcome back, everyone. If you caught part 1 of this series, you already know that Grandma was not just keeping house. She was running an underground chemistry lab that would make modern researchers blush. And if you have not seen part 1 yet, go watch it right now, because what we covered there will make everything you are about to hear hit even harder. But today, we are going deeper. We are talking about the hacks that were not just dismissed. We are talking about the ones that were actively suppressed, the ones that got Grandma called a quack, the ones that pharmaceutical companies and cleaning product manufacturers spent real money trying to bury. Because here is the uncomfortable truth. A 30-cent bottle of 3% hydrogen peroxide sitting under Grandma's kitchen sink was doing the job of products that today cost $20, $30, even $50. And somebody was not happy about that. So let us get into it. 25 forgotten, forbidden, genius hydrogen peroxide hacks from the 1960s, counted down to the one that is going to make you look at that brown bottle in a completely different way. Number 25. Whitening yellowed lace curtains with a hydrogen peroxide soak. Back in the 60s, lace curtains were a serious point of pride. They were in every front window, and keeping them white was practically a social obligation. Grandma would fill her bathtub or a large basin with cool water and add about half a cup of 3% hydrogen peroxide per gallon. She would fully submerge the curtains and let them soak for 30 to 45 minutes before rinsing thoroughly and air drying in indirect sunlight. The reason this worked, and the reason textile chemists now acknowledge it, is because hydrogen peroxide acts as an oxidizing bleaching agent that breaks down the chromophores, the chemical bonds responsible for yellowing, without destroying the delicate fibers the way chlorine bleach does. Fabric companies hated this because they were selling specialized lace whitening products at a premium. Grandma was getting the same result for pennies. Number 24. Treating cold sores and mouth blisters. This one actually got Grandma some serious side eyes from doctors in the 60s and 70s. She would dilute 3% hydrogen peroxide 50-50 with water and use a cotton swab to dab it directly onto a cold sore at the very first tingling sign. What research now shows is that hydrogen peroxide creates an oxygen-rich environment at the site of the sore that actively inhibits the kind of anaerobic activity that allows the blister to develop and worsen. It does not cure the herpes simplex virus responsible for cold sores, but it significantly reduces the window of the outbreak. Pharmaceutical companies had medicated balms and creams to sell. A cotton swab and a 10-cent solution were not part of their business model. Number 23. Refresh and preserve cut flowers. Grandma would add just 2 or 3 drops of 3% hydrogen peroxide to a vase of water along with a pinch of sugar when she cut flowers from her garden or received a bouquet. She kept doing it every time she changed the water. Florists in the 60s thought this was eccentric at best. What we now understand is that bacteria in vase water is the primary reason cut flowers die quickly, and hydrogen peroxide neutralizes those bacteria without harming the flower stems the way more concentrated cleaning agents would. Modern floral preservation research has actually revisited this exact practice and found it to be remarkably effective. The floral industry, of course, prefers to sell you a packet of commercial flower food. Number 22. Removing rust stains from porcelain sinks and tubs. This combination was considered an old wives' tale for decades. Grandma would mix 3% hydrogen peroxide with enough cream of tartar to form a thick paste, apply it directly to the rust stain, let it sit for 30 to 45 minutes, and then scrub gently with a soft brush before rinsing. The chemistry behind it is that hydrogen peroxide oxidizes the iron compounds creating the stain, while the tartaric acid and cream of tartar chelates the iron, meaning it bonds to it and helps lift it from the porcelain surface. Hardware stores and cleaning product manufacturers wanted you to buy specialty rust removers. Grandma was using pantry staples. Number 21. Deodorizing and refreshing a musty mattress. Long before mattress protectors and commercial mattress fresheners existed, Grandma would lightly mist a solution of 3% hydrogen peroxide, a few drops of essential oil if she had it, and water across the surface of a mattress. She would let it air dry completely, usually with the window open before putting linens back on. The hydrogen peroxide breaks down the volatile organic compounds and bacterial colonies that create that musty, sour smell. Sleep product companies began selling expensive enzyme sprays and UV light devices for this exact problem in later decades. Grandma had it handled with a spray bottle. Number 20. Clean and brighten tile grout lines without scrubbing. Different approach from what we covered in Part 1. Grandma discovered that if you poured undiluted 3% hydrogen peroxide directly into the grout lines and let it sit for a full hour before simply wiping away, the oxidation would lift the grime and biological growth without any significant scrubbing at all. The key difference here was the soak time. Most people today either do not wait long enough or dilute it too much. She knew to let the chemistry do the heavy lifting. Cleaning product brands needed you to buy specialty grout cleaners. This approach required patience, not purchasing. Number 19. Treating minor skin infections and ingrown hairs. In the 60s, minor skin infections were a real household concern, and Grandma had a method. She would soak a clean cloth or gauze pad in 3% hydrogen peroxide and hold it gently against the infected area or irritated ingrown hair for 10 to 15 minutes. This was considered overly aggressive by some medical professionals of the era. However, what dermatological research now confirms is that for surface-level infections and inflamed follicles, the oxygen burst from hydrogen peroxide creates an environment that prevents further bacterial colonization. It is not appropriate for deep wounds, as we now understand, but for superficial infections, it was genuinely effective. Antibiotic cream manufacturers were not fans. Number 18. Removing skunk odor from pets and clothing. This one Grandma swore by, and the neighbors thought she had lost her mind. She would combine 1 quart of 3% hydrogen peroxide with a 1/4 cup of baking soda and just a teaspoon of liquid dish soap. She would work this through a pet's fur or onto affected clothing, let it sit for 5 full minutes, and then rinse thoroughly with cool water. The oxidizing action of the hydrogen peroxide combined with the baking soda neutralizes the thiols, which are the sulfur compounds responsible for skunk odor. This combination was documented later by an analytical chemist named Paul Krebaum and confirmed to be chemically sound. Grandma figured it out empirically decades earlier. Number 17. Sterilizing kitchen sponges by soaking. Everyone in the 60s just kept using their sponges until they fell apart, but Grandma knew those sponges were bacterial breeding grounds. She would soak her kitchen sponge in undiluted 3% hydrogen peroxide for 10 minutes, rinse it well, and squeeze it dry. Research now confirms that kitchen sponges harbor extraordinary bacterial populations, and hydrogen peroxide-soaked treatments reduce those populations dramatically. The sponge and cleaning product industry obviously preferred you to throw sponges away and buy new ones constantly. Grandma was extending the hygienic life of hers for free. Number 16. Clean and whiten grout around outdoor garden beds and pathways. This is different from indoor grout because outdoor surfaces accumulate algae, moss, and mold differently than indoor tile. Grandma would mix 3% hydrogen peroxide with a small amount of water in a spray bottle, saturate the outdoor grout or mortar lines, and let the sun and the chemistry work together over a couple of hours before hosing down. UV light activates hydrogen peroxide's oxidizing properties, making outdoor application in sunlight actually more effective than indoor use. Landscape maintenance companies wanted to sell you professional cleaning services. Grandma was doing it on a Tuesday afternoon for nothing. Number 15. Soaking tired and aching feet with warm water bath. Now this is different from the antifungal foot soak we covered in Part 1. This particular technique was aimed at general fatigue, small cuts from gardening or walking barefoot, and mild inflammation. Grandma would fill a basin with comfortably warm water and add a full cup of 3% hydrogen peroxide. She would soak her feet for 20 to 30 minutes. Beyond the obvious antimicrobial benefit, the effervescent, bubbling action of the hydrogen peroxide against the skin increases local circulation and creates a mild mechanical cleaning effect in small cracks and crevices between toes and around the heels. Podiatrists in the 60s told patients this was unnecessary. Today, foot care brands sell oxygenated foot soak products at significant markups that work on this exact same principle. Number 14. Clean hearing aids and remove earwax buildup from the devices. Grandma had a methodical approach here. She would put a few drops of 3% hydrogen peroxide on a cotton ball and gently wipe the external housing of hearing aids, being careful not to let any liquid enter the microphone or speaker ports. For removing accumulated earwax from the crevices of the device housing, she would let the dampened cotton ball sit against those areas for 30 seconds. The hydrogen peroxide breaks down the waxy organic compounds without damaging most plastics used in hearing aid construction. Hearing aid clinics preferred to sell expensive cleaning kits and professional cleaning services. Grandma handled it at home. Number 13. Deodorizing garbage cans and bins. After emptying and rinsing a garbage can, Grandma would spray the interior liberally with 3% hydrogen peroxide. Let it sit for 15 to 20 minutes and then rinse and air dry. The hydrogen peroxide kills the anaerobic bacteria responsible for the persistent sour and rotten odors that linger even after washing. It also breaks down residual organic matter clinging to the plastic or metal walls. Commercial trash can deodorizers and odor eliminator products flooded the market in later decades, none of which worked better than this approach. This one was so simple that the cleaning industry spent considerable effort convincing people they needed something more sophisticated. Number 12. Brightening and refreshing faded cotton quilts. Grandma's quilts were often family heirlooms, and keeping them bright without damaging the fabric or fading the colors was a genuine challenge. She would fill a clean bathtub with cold water and add 2 cups of 3% hydrogen peroxide. Then fully submerge a faded cotton quilt for up to an hour before rinsing in cold water and air drying flat in indirect light. The hydrogen peroxide brightens the white and light-colored areas through oxidative action while being gentle enough on cotton fibers that it does not cause the degradation chlorine bleach produces. Textile care specialists and dry cleaning businesses did not want you to know you could refresh quilts at home this effectively. Number 11. Treating yellowed plastic kitchen appliances and fixtures. Old plastic yellows over time due to UV exposure and oxidative degradation of the flame-retardant compounds used in manufacturing. Grandma would paint thick 3% hydrogen peroxide onto yellowed plastic surfaces, then wrap them loosely in plastic wrap and set them in a sunny window for several hours. The combination of UV light and hydrogen peroxide reverses the oxidation in the plastic. This technique became widely known in retro computer restoration communities decades later and was confirmed to work by materials scientists. In the 60s, the appliance industry preferred that yellowed plastics made you want to buy new ones. Number 10. Using hydrogen peroxide to clean and maintain wooden cutting boards differently from what we covered in Part 1. This approach involves a longer conditioning treatment. Grandma would spray 3% hydrogen peroxide across a wooden board, let it penetrate and bubble for 10 full minutes, then wipe it away and immediately apply a coat of food-grade mineral oil while the surface was still slightly damp. The hydrogen peroxide not only sanitized the surface, but its oxidizing action slightly opened the wood grain before the oil was applied, allowing deeper penetration of the conditioning oil. Kitchen goods stores wanted to sell specialized wooden board conditioners and treatments. Grandma was doing it with 2 items she already had. Number 9. Using hydrogen peroxide to whiten and clean piano keys. In the 60s, many households had upright pianos, and ivory or early plastic keys yellowed terribly with use. Grandma would dampen a cloth with 3% hydrogen peroxide and wipe each key carefully. keeping the solution away from the wood key beds underneath. For plastic keys, she would let the hydrogen peroxide sit for 2 to 3 minutes before wiping clean. For genuine ivory keys, she would apply it and let natural light do additional work. The oxidative bleaching action lifts the yellowing without the abrasive damage that polished products caused. Piano maintenance companies charged for professional key whitening. Grandma handled it herself. Number 8. Removing bloodstains from fabric with cold hydrogen peroxide. This was one Grandma was incredibly precise about. Cold water only, never hot. She would pour 3% hydrogen peroxide directly onto a fresh bloodstain. Watch it effervesce. Blot it away gently and repeat as necessary. The hydrogen peroxide breaks down hemoglobin through oxidation, which is why you will see it bubble vigorously on contact with blood. Hot water sets bloodstains permanently by denaturing the proteins and bonding them to fabric fibers. The dry cleaning industry benefited enormously from people using hot water first and then needing professional treatment. Grandma never made that mistake. Number 7. Clean and preserve cast iron cookware without stripping seasoning. Grandma had a very specific method. After washing her cast iron with plain hot water, if any rust spots appeared, she would apply 3% hydrogen peroxide with a cloth. Let it sit for just 5 minutes, then scrub with a salt scrub and immediately dry the pan over low heat before re-oiling. The key is the short contact time. Brief hydrogen peroxide application removes rust oxidation without penetrating deep enough to affect the seasoned layers built up in the pores of the iron. Cookware companies wanted cast iron to seem complicated to maintain so they could sell new pieces and specialized cleaning products. Grandma kept the same skillet for 40 years. Number 6. Freshen and sanitize a closed car interior. Grandma would do this when her car developed a musty smell after wet weather, or if someone had been ill inside it. She would soak several cotton balls in 3% hydrogen peroxide, place them in a small open container inside the closed car, and leave the windows up for 2 to 3 hours before airing it out thoroughly. The hydrogen peroxide evaporates slowly, and the vapor sanitizes fabric surfaces and the air inside the cabin. Auto detailing companies charge significantly for interior sanitization services. This approach required nothing more than cotton balls. Number 5. Eliminating underarm odor with hydrogen peroxide. Grandma understood something deodorant companies rarely explained. Sweat itself does not smell. The odor comes from bacteria breaking down compounds in sweat. Her solution was simple. She would pour a little 3% hydrogen peroxide onto a cotton ball and wipe the underarm area before getting dressed. The peroxide releases oxygen that destroys odor, causing bacteria on contact. Instead of masking the smell with perfume, Grandma removed the microbes creating it in the first place. Modern dermatology quietly confirms she was right. Number 4. Treat and prevent moss and lichen growth on garden statuary and stonework. Grandma would spray undiluted 3% hydrogen peroxide directly onto stone garden ornaments, bird baths, and pathways where moss and lichen were taking hold, then leave them to dry naturally in the sun. The hydrogen peroxide penetrates the cellular structure of moss and lichen, and the UV activation from sunlight amplifies the oxidative effect significantly. Landscape and garden supply companies wanted to sell specialized stone treatment chemicals. Grandma needed none of them. Number 3. Adding hydrogen peroxide to a steam iron water reservoir to prevent mineral buildup and mold inside the iron. This one was quietly brilliant. Grandma would add just a tablespoon of 3% hydrogen peroxide to the water she put in her steam iron each time she ironed. It prevented the slimy mold and mineral scale from accumulating inside the iron's water chamber, kept steam vents clear, and meant the steam being pushed through fabric was carrying a mild sanitizing quality. Appliance repair shops saw a lot of business from clogged and mold-fouled steam irons. Grandma kept hers in pristine condition for years with this one simple habit. Number 2. Using hydrogen peroxide to treat and freshen a sick room by wiping all hard surfaces, including light switches and door handles. During any illness in the household, Grandma's protocol was methodical. She would wipe every high-touch surface, door handles, light switches, telephone handsets, faucets, with a cloth soaked in 3% hydrogen peroxide. Allow each surface to remain visibly wet for at least 2 minutes before wiping dry. She understood intuitively what epidemiologists confirmed much later, that fomites, meaning contaminated surfaces, were major transmission vectors for household illness. Pharmaceutical companies selling disinfectant sprays were not pleased that an unbranded bottle from the drugstore did the job equally well. And number 1. Using diluted hydrogen peroxide in a nebulizer or steam inhaler to address respiratory congestion and sinus issues. This is the one that truly got Grandma in trouble. In the 1960s, she and many women of her generation would add a very small amount of extremely diluted hydrogen peroxide, typically around 0.1% or lower, to a steam inhaler to address congestion from colds or sinus infections. Doctors told her this was dangerous. Pharmacists raised their eyebrows. The pharmaceutical industry was building an enormous market around medicated inhalers, decongestants, and antibiotic prescriptions. What researchers now carefully acknowledge is that at the appropriate, extremely low concentrations, the oxygen delivery properties of hydrogen peroxide vapor may have genuine therapeutic relevance for respiratory surfaces. This is not a blanket endorsement, and concentration matters enormously here because high concentrations would indeed be harmful. But at the micro dilutions Grandma used, scientists are now looking at this very seriously. She was decades ahead of the research. Grandma was not reckless. She was not uneducated. She was empirical. She watched, she tested, she refined over years of practice. And the establishment that laughed at her? They are now quietly publishing papers that confirm what she already knew. If you made it all the way to number 1, you are exactly the kind of person who belongs in this community. Drop a comment and tell me which of these 25 hacks surprised you the most. And please go watch part 1 if you have not already, because the two together will completely transform how you think about that humble little brown bottle. Hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we will see you in the next one.